Hello! All right, live peoples or peoples that watch the video recording after. It is time for me to get this show on the road. Hello and welcome. So, this is I Do What I Want. I'm your host, Hollis, and I am an author of fantasy novels, the Rashan series and the Lost Beacon Chronicles, and which are two separate series for those of you who are not regular listeners and might get confused. So, yeah, I have a podcast. This episode is going to be me reading the fifth short story that I wrote for the power therapy series, but that Dr. Kobus Vorster, um, spelling of his name is in the description. Developed and is still going on. It's a great self-help, power. It's called power therapy because he's a licensed psychologist and a really great guy. I really enjoy him as a person. Fantastic. And he had this wonderful idea of illustrating his power therapy techniques via short stories. So the title, Elephant Driver, this episode is one of the techniques that he developed. Those are all his, but all the characters and everything that I created and the storyline, that's all me. And we decided not to continue with the short stories as part of the therapy program just because people weren't reading them, which does happen. People were coming for the therapy. So if you are looking for a good therapy program to sort of help yourself, that a licensed psychologist did. I would strongly recommend the power therapy series. I do think it works, and it basically gives you the techniques and it's supposed to set you up so that you can fly solo, without you can learn the techniques and continue to employ them without needing to continue to pay for the therapy. And that's sort of the idea behind it is getting you to a point to help yourself. And then you have this arsenal of techniques that you can constantly call on to do that, which is wonderful. I love the mental health aspect of that, and as I've mentioned probably about a billion times in previous episodes, I'm interested in psychology as a personal hobby. I like to read the studies. That sort of thing is very fun. So it was great for me to work on this. Uh, and I am going to continue the reading. I'm tripping over my words. I am sleepy. It's a long day. I'm going to continue writing this story. I've gotten several DMs and messages. Thank you so much for those of you who responded to me. I genuinely appreciate it. So I'm not going to do it right away, but I will rewrite the first five or re-edit them so that it takes out the power therapy technique. So it is just a collection of short stories, and I am going to rework it so that they are a collection of stories that take place probably within the world of Rashan. I think I'm going to sort of recalibrate things a little bit and use all the same stuff, but I'm really really excited about it. So yeah, should be a lot of fun. Thank you again for the feedback. This is the last one that I had written back in the day, but the story will be continuing. If you want to catch up, if you haven't heard all the other stories, start at episode 29 of the podcast, which I released in October. I do one episode a month. So the first short story I read for episode 29, and then episodes 29 through 33, which is this episode, are the short stories in the proper order. So that is going on there. Other updates before I get to reading the short story. I promise to be quick. The Rashan series, Tear in the World, which is the third book in the Rashan series, is coming out in the fall. I'm currently writing it and getting everything together for it, but I'm really, really excited to share it with you. I am really excited. It delves more into the paranormal side of things because I love that shit. And it's getting it's getting really cool. I I really love the themes, dealing with a little bit darker themes. For those of you who read, The Queen Witch, I definitely lean and To Save a World, I lean on the dark fantasy side of things, nothing that's going to have you checking under your bed at night or whatever, but or at least I hope not. But it's a little bit in the darker themes, with the creatures that I like to use and things like that, but I'm really excited for Terra in the World. It is going to be much more Aram and Yoslin focused. Ethne and Darian are there, and Jeeve and Jess and all the and Tanya and everybody, but they are present, but the adventure focuses more on a journey for Aram and Yoselin. So I'm really excited to share it with you. I'll be giving you updates. And also with the Rashawn series, I'm kind of doing a little revamp on things, and I am so excited. I have redesigned all of the covers so that they look even cooler. And so I will be re-releasing To Save a World and The Queen Witch with the new covers this spring. So I'm hoping to be done with my edits. Obviously, the books will be the same content, but it's going to have new graphics. It's going to have, just look and feel is really, really exciting. So I'm changing the look and feel of things. So I'm changing all the graphics and everything. For those of you who have copies of my books, you know that when I start a new chapter, I have a full page graphic with that make it beautiful and everything else. So I get very visual with my books, and I enjoy doing that. So there will be that. I'm finishing up the interior redesign of the page layouts for those, and then I'm going to release them this spring. So there'll be the re-release of that, and then I'm going to do the cover reveal for Tear in the World in the summer, probably late June, early July. So really, really excited about that. And yeah, it's gonna be really pretty. And then I'm aiming to have Tear in the World released in September. Um, if I finish it in time, I'd love to have it released just before Dragon Con, which is Labor Day weekend. So in August, if I can. But please don't hold your breath. Trying my best. So that is what's going on with the Rashawn series. I am going to be putting Lost Beacon Chronicles on pause for at least a year. You have 2 books in it already, so if you're into it, I appreciate it. I do love that series, but right now I'm focusing on the Rashawn series, and just with my time management and making sure I give you all the best quality I possibly can, I can't be volleying back and forth. Can't sacrifice the quality of writing just to make sure to get the content out, because then who's going to want to read it, right? So focusing on the Rashawn series for the next year to 2 years, and then I will get back into writing the Lost Beacon Chronicles. It's just going to be, a little bit of a pause for the Lost Beacon Chronicles, but I promise to keep writing it. In the meantime, check out Spare the Swallow, which is the origin story, and Ignited, which was released in November of last year, to see what that's all about. Let's get started. And as I've mentioned before, for those of you watching live, I have the short story on my computer. So I am looking at my computer while I'm reading, and not looking. I mean, it might look like I'm looking down the whole time, but I promise that's just what's happening. And for those of you who are curious, because I get questions when people see my mug on live, I'm drinking green tea. Moroccan mint green tea, to be specific. So if that's of interest to you, which, by the way, my really great friend Chrissy got me this beautiful mug, and I love it. And it has its own little tea strainer and everything that comes with it, so I can have my loose leaf tea in it. And thank you, Chrissy. I love my gift. So here we are. For those of you who are following, Amari, Keist, Jaren, and Piper all fled the followers of the Volcar, which is that, cult of the Fang that worships the like crazy werewolf violent creatures. Um and um and they escaped and they fled back to Amari's house where they were, where her father was there, and they were being sheltered, and they thought they were going to be cool for at least a day or two to sort of um recalibrate and get everything together, and Piper's starting to train Jaren in how to use his powers of the Flux Fen. Now if you want to know what all that is, go listen to episodes 29 through 32. Here we go. Elephant driver. Amari, wake up! Wake up now! Her father's urgent whisper rocketed Amari into consciousness. Her espresso brown eyes flew open with alertness to see her father's anxious face over her. Something must be very wrong. Amari stared at him in silence, waiting for him to tell her the problem. The soldiers are raiding everyone's homes, and those who worship the Volcar. They just started down our street. They're looking for you and your friends, sweetheart. Aaron told her with a very heavy heart. The next thing he had to say pained him deeply. You have to leave. We can't let them find any of you. Papa, no! Amari sat up in abrupt protest. She had just come back home, back to her redwood, back to her bed, back to her papa. She did not want to ever leave again. One adventure was enough for her. She wanted to stay here where all was safe, and she knew what was expected of her. The others can leave without me. I'll show them the way out of the village safely and come right back, okay? Aaron shook his head as he swallowed down the lump in his throat. He wished so hard that could be the case, but they were not so lucky. They are looking for you too, honey. They are looking for you too. You have to go with them. Hurry now. Get your things together while I wake the others. Amari understood his words, but had not fully digested them yet. There wasn't time to wait. She nodded dumbly and began packing a bag for travel. Following her father's instructions seemed the only thing to do at the moment. Aaron turned away and went downstairs to where the three men were sleeping. He woke the three of them and told them the news, but pulled Keist aside to speak with him while Jaren and Piper got ready to leave. I have an important favor to ask of you. I do not ask this of you lightly. I need you to look after my Amari. She's all I have, Keist. She's my everything, and I cannot bear that I must send her away now. Please, promise me that you will protect her. Aaron pleaded earnestly of the bodyguard. May have seemed to the more obvious choice, but Keist was a bodyguard with keen instincts in his good heart. Aaron had not known him for long, but he could tell that the soldier was a good protector. As a father, he had a sense for these things. Plus, he could tell that Amari respected him, even though they would probably butt heads from time to time. Keist blinked at the desperate parent for a second. It was a bit overwhelming to be asked such a heavy favor. It felt like more than even being charged with protecting the crowned prince. Aaron was asking him to watch over the one priceless thing in his life. Keist had always accepted responsibility when it was asked of him, even if it scared him. It was why he had moved up the ranks so quickly and earned a place in the Royal Guard at the age of 30. Most of the others took much longer to achieve such a position in the military career. Keist's decisive nature and fearlessness had accelerated him. This request of service was the first that had ever scared him. Aaron held his breath as he waited for an answer. The hesitation only lasted a second, maybe two, but to the father it felt as though time itself stopped. I promise to protect her with my life until I can return her safely to you. Keist managed to sound much more self-assured than he really felt, but he meant every word of it. He always kept his promises, especially to good people. He reached over and gripped Aaron's thick shoulder and looked him squarely in the eyes. I promise. Aaron relaxed only a little Only a little at the affirmation. He gripped Kais's opposite shoulder in affirmation to show his appreciation. He could not fully relax, though. He would not relax again until his daughter came back home. Until then, Kais's promise would have to be enough to keep him warm. Just then, Amari came down the living redwood stairs in travel clothes and a pack over her shoulder. It was obviously a bit overstuffed. She didn't know what to bring. Before last night, she had never spent a night away from home before. She saw her father and Keist gripping each other's shoulders in silent affirmation. She was curious to know why, but chose to say nothing. Now was not the time. A few feet away, Jaren and Piper stood ready to leave. All nodded to one another in recognition of what was happening. They would have to leave now. Aaron stared at his only daughter's frightened face with a heavy heart. He hated this. He knew she did too. A surprised yelp from next door and heavy footsteps invading the neighbor's home jolted all to alertness. There was no time for long goodbyes. They would be here in a matter of minutes, and they would not ask nicely. Aaron gripped Amari in a tight bear hug with tears welling in his eyes. Go out the back. Lead them through the side streets and away from the village, he whispered hoarsely. Take good care of each other, okay? Stay together and stay safe. I'll see you again. I promise. Amari only managed an equally hoarse, I love you, Papa, before they were headed out at the back door and into the side streets. She would be responsible for leading them out of the village, away from her home. After that, they would have to decide where to go next. Large salty tears silently rolled down her cheeks as she led them away from the immediate danger. She did not wipe them away. She was not ashamed of her sadness. Her new companions, respectively, said nothing. Once they were a safe distance away from the village and were certain they weren't followed, they stopped to assess their direction. None of them had any idea where to go next. It was unusually cold and still tonight for the autumn, but none of them paid the weather much mind. There were much more important things on their minds at the moment. We should go to Piper's home. It's the most logical thing to do. The rest of us can't possibly go to our homes right now. Jaren stated plainly. He wanted to get as far away as from the kingdom of Tigist as possible. Taking Piper back to his home seemed the right thing to do by his new mentor, as well as probably being the safest option. The furrow of Kais's ginger brow deepened at the statement. He understood the prince's motivations, but he did not think it was the immediate action they should take. And just leave the whole kingdom of Tigist at the mercy of the cult of the Fang? No, I cannot ignore my duty to the people of Tigist, nor should you. No matter how dastardly your father may be, your people still need you. Jaren bit his bottom lip and looked down. He suddenly felt ashamed for wanting to just run away from all the problems. He may not be the real prince, but that did not excuse him from acting with honor. He was feeling quite down on himself all of a sudden for being selfish. Piper watched the change in him and cleared his throat abruptly. Don't dwell on it, boy. It doesn't serve you. Cut the negative thought off at the pass. It deserves none of your time or energy. He's right. You're not a bad person just because you wanted to save yourself. Don't waste energy on beating yourself up over hypotheticals. It doesn't make sense because it doesn't serve you. Keist added to Piper's statement. He liked how Piper seemed to think. Keist always cut out the negative thoughts before they had a chance to creep in. Negative thoughts only beget negative outcomes. They were pointless to the bodyguard, and therefore had no place in one's psyche as far as he was concerned. Jaren nodded as he willed himself not to feel sorry for his thoughts anymore. This was going to take more practice than he realized. So, what should we do? I would propose that we find a way to break whatever bonds exist between the cult of the Fang and your father, Keist replied in a military fashion. Perhaps if we can get to your mother. I sincerely doubt the queen would have agreed to send her own son to be sacrificed. That was probably her motive in requesting that I guard you on this journey to Pike. She realized something was amiss, but I did not know what. So she sent a trusted bodyguard to better protect you. An awkward moment passed as Jaren looked down and an awkward moment passed as Jaren looked down and Piper to Jaren. Keist could tell there was something he did not know about the prince that this stranger somehow did. He watched them intensely as he awaited a reply. I just realized that you're not him, are you? You're not the prince. Amari's small voice stunned the group as she voiced her question. She was sitting on the chilled, dewy ground with her knees pulled up to her chest and tears still streaming down her ruddy cheeks. Though all eyes were suddenly on her, she only looked plainly at Jaren. How did you I mean, why would you say that? Jaren stuttered awkwardly over his words. This tiny Fey woman was more insightful than he had given her credit for previously. Your face when Kais talks about your parents. It goes all sort of blank, like there's no emotion there, like there was never any emotional bond. She paused to wipe her nose on her sleeve with a sniffle. If they were your real parents, you would have a feeling about them. Any feeling at all. You look as though they are merely strangers to you, that you only are aware of them in a peripheral sense. So they can't be your real parents. Mothers and fathers, no matter the relationship is to their children, cause deeper emotional reactions and never flat out indifference. Jaren gulped down hard as he stared with wide eyes at the perceptive Fey woman. He had been taught all his life to keep up the facade of being the crowned prince, and he was rather good at it, too. Apparently, for all his practice, he was no match for someone who had an intimate insight into a positive parent child relationship. Someone who deeply understood what it was to grow up with people that loved her unconditionally, no matter what. A firm hand gripped Jaren's shoulder. He looked to his right to meet the intense emerald gaze of Piper. Tell them. Your true me needs to be known. You need to say it out loud. Tell them and forgive your true me. The time of hiding is past. Take the reins of your inner elephant and drive it where you know your true me will succeed. Jaren wasn't sure what he meant by driving his inner elephant, but he made a mental note to ask Piper about that later. Right at this moment, he needed to focus. He needed to say it. Kai's mouth went bone dry as he stared intently at Jaren. The intensity of his gaze was likely intimidating. The bodyguard's facial expressions were often much more intimidating than he intended them to be. He could sense that what was coming, but until it was said, he honestly did not know what his own reaction would be. Jaren was very afraid of Keist. He wasn't afraid of being physically attacked by him, but he was terrified of Keist leaving him. They had only known each other for a few short days, but he found that he had already come to rely on his mental strength and decisive nature. He felt safer with Keist around. They all did. He did not want him to leave. Go on. Piper's smooth, quiet urging cut through his fearful thoughts. Embrace your true me. Liberate yourself through authenticity. You are the elephant driver. Jaren took a deep breath and released it slowly. He locked eyes with Keist. I am the crowned prince's double. The real Prince Jaren is probably safe at the castle. The king never sent his real son to be sacrificed. As far as I know, the queen did not know he was sending me instead of their own son. A heavy silence fell as his words settled around them. Surprisingly, it was a sensation of relief that was felt most prevalently among the group. The truth was out now. Jaren was quietly surprised at the profound control he suddenly felt. He turned and looked to Piper, who nodded with affirmation. This was a taste of the power of embracing the true me. So, what's your real name? Keist asked. He actually processed the fact that this was not the real prince rather quickly. As soon as he said it, Keist was able to make sense of it directly. Jaren simply shrugged. I was taken when I was a toddler and made to be the princess double, so they always called me Jaren in order to have me for me to respond naturally to it. I don't remember my real name. You've been a prisoner your entire life? The bodyguard's voice raised slightly in anger, not at the man in front of him, but at the people he had devoted his military career to serving. He was already questioning he thought he knew what he thought he knew about the king, but to know that the entire royal family had stolen away the life an entire life for selfish purposes made him feel downright mutinous. How could he have been so loyal to such monsters for so long? His decisiveness kicked in like a clap of thunder. He would no longer serve the royal family of Tigist at all. Jaren had answered his question with a simple nod. He expected a big reaction of some sort, but what he saw developing in Keist's expression was something new. His subconscious began going to a negative place. His whole life was a sad story, and maybe bad things had happened to him. He tended to jump to thinking the worst. He felt thinking this way had kept him safe all these years. He began to feel defensive and started to open his mouth to say something when he felt Piper grip his shoulder firmly. His emerald eyes were also trained on the imposing bodyguard. "Don't let the elephant drive you," he whispered harshly. "The elephant is your subconscious, and sometimes it tries to go to bad places, but never forget that you are the real driver here. Don't let your elephant take you to a bad place. Drive it back to the good. Control it. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at what is about to happen here." Keist drew himself up to his full height and held Jaren's eyes with his own firmly. "I can't serve a king or queen that would so selfishly take someone's life away from them, nor can I serve anyone who would take up with the likes of the cult of the Fang. I resign from the royal guard here and now." Everyone's eyes grew wide as they looked upon the bodyguard. They all admired his strength and honor. "Does this mean that you'll stay with us?" Amari's small voice cut through the moment hopefully. She too wasn't sure what Keist would do after leaving the village, though she desperately hoped they would all stay together. She honestly had nowhere else to go. Keist's usually scowling expression softened as he looked at her. "Yes, I will stay with you until you are safely back with your father, Amari. That is a promise." He turned to look at Jaren next. "And I will stay with you too, if that is what you wish. You seem a good man in spite of your treatment. I admire that." What happened next was completely unexpected on Kai's part. Amari stood up and hugged the big ginger man tightly around the waist. Then, before he could process her sudden affection, Jaren stepped up to him with misting eyes and hugged him as well. It took him a second of shock to realize what was happening, but then the big man returned their hugs. Piper stood back and visually soaked in the scene with a warm smile. He was so pleased and proud of all of them. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that Jaren must be his long-lost nephew. The circumstances of timing and his abilities with the Fluxfen left no doubt in his mind. Besides, the more time he spent with him, the more he saw his sister in him, both physically and in small nuances. He wondered how long he should wait to tell him. Now was not the time. He was already going through so much. Piper did not wish to stress him with too much change all at once. The present situation was already overwhelming, but he was dying to tell him his name. He wanted him to feel the assurance and safety of being called by your own name. The time would come, hopefully soon. "Okay, enough," Keist declared good-naturedly as he broke the hug. It felt like Amari and Jaren did not want to let go of him. "We need to figure out where we're going. And you know where I stand. I no longer serve King Ramos. But I am still a citizen of Tigist. I will not stand by and allow the cult of the Fang to take control." "I agree," Amari concurred as she finally wiped the tears from her red cheeks and pulled her cloak tighter around herself. It felt like there was a sudden drop in the temperature. "I believe the cult of the Fang is the reason my people are suddenly being forced from our lands. I think the king plans to use the Fae like sacrificial lambs to the Volkwar. He must be stopped." Jaren looked to Piper in silent communication and nodded with a smile when he saw the answer in his emerald eyes. "We are with you as well. They imprisoned me and forced me into servitude for my whole life. Now they are harming the entire communities for their own people. They must be stopped. A collective surge of pride and purpose welled up inside of all of them. This was a pivotal moment for each of them. Well, which way to the capital? Piper beamed as he asked. Both Amari and Keist simultaneously pointed in the same direction. The four companions set off with confident strides. As they walked in comfortable silence, the chill in the air seeped deeper into their skin. Then, puffy white flakes began gently falling from the night sky. It was a peaceful It was peacefully slow at first, but then it rapidly increased to a heavy snowfall. Walking became hindered by inches and then a full foot of snow. It continued to fall. It was becoming intolerable to go on. They would have to make camp and huddle in until morning. That is where I left it off. Can you believe it? I know. That's where I left it off. So, that is Elephant Driver. And I think that you probably get the concept of Elephant Driver from listening to it, which, again, is one of the therapy techniques in the power therapy program. Um, Thank you so much for listening. I will continue to write these. Follow me on Instagram at Hollis Joe McCullum. Follow my YouTube channel if you're not already. And then this is on Spotify if you're listening on there. So you can follow the I Do What I Want podcast on Spotify. I post once a month, usually the second Sunday of every month in the middle. But I do appreciate it very much. Keep a lookout for the Rashawn series because, that's happening. And I hope that you all will have an absolutely wonderful night.